Good evening, it's 2100 UTC on this Monday, 30th of September, 3305. I'm your host, Jeff Ryan, and welcome to the Prismatic Congress. The Prismatic Congress is a broadcast by the Prismatic Imperium based in Cubio, an active player group that makes up part of the Aisling Deval community and specializing in role-playing. First, general game news. The Rockforth fertilizer exploit, which was an ability to buy and sell a new rare good at one station, was exploited to make billions of credits for lots of people. That was shut down on Wednesday with a note from Frontier saying that it was illegal and they would be looking at recouping losses. So people who had exploited found themselves suddenly without the money that they had made. We've had patches to the September update. We've had various client-side and server-side patches. And there was a big patch on the 23rd of September, and there's another one coming this week. Frontier acknowledges the frustration of the player base and thanks us for our patience as usual. But there has been a lot of criticism of Frontier, specifically because this broke so many things and there wasn't a beta period. Sometimes the betas can be criticized for not focusing on the right things, or sometimes they're too short, but this just went straight live because it was considered to be ultimately a minor update, and it broke the game. The game is still broken. There's still a lot of bugs people are looking to fix. It made things a lot harder also for people on consoles, on Xbox and PlayStation, who still have a lot of issues, including tear and various other serious things that really hurt their gameplay. Some of the things are quite minor, like how the station is oriented, but that's still a frustration for many people who use those mechanisms to work out where they are in relation to the station in space. And also this week there has been a petition put forward, which had a signature goal of 1,000 people, and that goal has already been met at the time of broadcast. And this is a request basically to reinstate betas, which is something that I think that would have happened anyway. And also for more open communication between the Frontier developments and the players, and also looking to enable the community managers for Frontier to represent the players better rather than being mainly a PR. It's an interesting read. It seems to cover a lot of different things, basically looking at managing the quality of releases and being able to have a more concrete conversation directly between the player base and the Frontier. This is something that we'll look at and talk about later on. But now I think it's time for branch news. First, Vigor with Lord Warden Missler.
Okay, thank you. So for the bunch of Vigor, I'll cut it relatively short because not too much happened this week, and I also didn't have a lot of time to prepare what I want to be talking about. Just a little BGS update. Our expansion that I was talking about last week for the Adamantine Union that has succeeded, and we are now in the Astromir system. We will leave it where it is for now and still focus on stabilizing the systems that the Adamantine Union is already present in, and bolster their control there for the time being. Make sure to check out all the current information and objectives on our Discord about that. Other than that, there is roleplay still going on. The Vice Warden arc will probably continue for a longer while, so you can stay tuned on that. And I think that was pretty much it already for Vigor this week. And I don't want to waste more time and get straight to Headmaster Tagaron for the Branch of Sight.
Well, thank you, my dear colleague. It seems like you have a very calm face in your branch. I congratulate you for managing everything so greatly. For this week, I don't really have any new announcements. Besides, the site mission board is getting a new update. A lot of people have told me that the current rewards are a bit too high. I totally agree and decided to make some small fixes and changes to the mission board. But not all at once. I want to see what actually happens in the next mission reports people send in, if the rewards are still too high, or if it's okay. So should there be any problems, I'll continue to adjust the rewards. Other than that, my Vice Handmaster and me are still planning the route for the incoming expedition at the end of this October. That has been all for this week.
Okay, so first, Missler. So the BGS is quite quiet. You've reached your objective. One thing I wanted to follow up on a little bit was the discussion we had last time about the retreat. What happened there? Did it go through, or is it still in progress, or did we lose our window of opportunity, or what?
No, it
What
worked perfectly. We were already close to getting it through. There was a little bit of a last day surprise that it shot up again, and we were already a little bit afraid of it failing, but no, everything worked out very well in the end, and we're rid of that system now, which is fairly nice.
Okay. Is there anything? Because I remember, like, back in the old days, under the old BGS system, there were a few systems that we were looking at retreating from. Is there anything else that we would still like to retreat from, and we could use this again, or is this a one-off?
We're still looking into further retreats internally right now, yes.
Okay.
But we were quite happy that we got one down for now.
It's the first one that I've actually heard of, so congratulations on that. Obviously, there's still the ongoing Vice Warden storyline, which has us all riveted and keeps me up at night sometimes. But it's an interesting development, and I think because there's also been some discussions and things going on behind what we see, and we know that some things there's been some changes and retcons around that. Because of some misunderstandings, one of which was specifically the relationship between the Adamantine Union and the Prismatic Imperium. And for me, I mean, I do not blame the mistake on the player, in this case, Vice Warden Benjamin, but I think maybe we should look at writing a more comprehensive lore guide, because our lore is important. It's something that's kind of been put together over a few years. Through articles and storylines unfolding, and just the history that the players have affected. For people like myself and maybe Otto and obviously Kevin, who've been there since the beginning or near the beginning, this is stuff that we have lived through, and it's not stuff that we would really think of when we think about lore, because I tend to think about what happened before the game started.
We do have the Codex, which has quite a bunch of information accessible, mostly some historical parts. I think it could use an update on the more recent history. I think the complete last season there was no information about it. I'm not sure right now, because I joined after all that happened. So if there's something I miss, I try to see if I can find it in there, but it's still a lot of hand looking.
Yeah, there is a lot of stuff in there. The Codex, I wrote a lot of the Codex, so I'm kind of insulting myself here, but it's kind of spread out. We looked at it as a per event basis, so there's things in there about the battle for Medupi or the founding of the.
We don't really have something like a timeline.
Yeah, that's something that I think would be, because people like that. They like to just go, "Oh, this is what's happened. This happened then. This is important." And also some of the things like the article on the Adamantine Union can maybe be expressed a little bit better, so that if people want to look for that specific information, it's more accurate, or it's better explained some of the time. Because I mean, basically, a lot of the entries, I didn't write all of them, but a lot of the entries that I was involved in, I just kind of threw them together as quickly as I could as we were building the website at the time. But I think it is worth looking at, and it's and I like things like this where there's a problem and it highlights a weakness that you have, and it allows you to fix that. So personally, I'm grateful for the opportunity to try and fix some of these things, and looking at, like, for example, a timeline. So yeah, I'm enjoying the roleplay. I'm enjoying some of the backroom discussions to try and sort some of the things out so that everybody's on the same page. So it's been an interesting development. I think everybody involved is enjoying it. So rewards, Techie. This is something we've discussed a few times, but I think it's just balance and trying to. I mean, I don't think that we had a bad system anyway, but obviously when you have people who go out and do a lot of exploring and a lot of science all at one time, then that does.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
these are
why
edge cases. I mean, the board is basically set up for people who are casually exploring. It's not set up for like people like me or Einarch or Barefeet.
Yeah, I didn't apply all the changes at once. I want to see what actually happens now after I made these few fixes. Just to look if people get more or less rewards this time.
I mean, it's tuning. It's like a dynamic process. You look what happens, how much you can usually expect in terms of reports, and then balance it according to that. And
I mean, also
the issue with the side mission board in terms of balancing it is that exploration is usually a task that you use more dedicated windows for. If you go do Vigor tasks, you just head out there for an hour or two and I don't know, do some combat zones or so and report them right away. And that's more common to see and to tune rewards around. For side, you'd usually go out for at least probably a day or two or an even longer expedition, and then you have this huge report with everything at once, and that makes it much harder to tune.
It takes a lot of time to earn a lot. Inside, of course. Inside you find a lot of big rewards, but they take a long time. And in Vigor you find a lot of small rewards that don't take a lot of time. So it's balance.
Yeah, but for example, for me, like, I mean, I've been out since January. I've not been in a station since like March or April. So when I come back, for me, there are two things. One is like I haven't, and I don't know how I could have recorded everything I've done. I mean, obviously, I can download it from my the website that's been tracking me. But even then, I wouldn't know how to even go about putting that into a report. Huge. So people like me who do big expeditions are probably far less likely to actually make a report in the first place because it's just such a big thing.
That's precisely why I wrote my little tool.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about that this weekend. I still haven't used it. Still, I need to actually see what that tool is and
it's been in the exploration challenge. It should be.
I know what you're doing out there.
You know what I'm doing? No.
Yeah, I've told it to you last week. You're just avoiding the paperwork here at the observatory.
Yeah, I'm avoiding my own paper. So, but even then, right? So even if I have the tool running, which I will do this week at some point, I obviously need to check up on something, do some back reading. But even if I have the tool, when I come back, I mean, obviously I'm going to get a large reward when I come back. But that's not like a reward from like a few days. I mean, that's months and months and months and months of work. So obviously it's going to be bigger and more for an edge case. Einarch was different because he did a lot of work in a very short period of time. That's different. So there is a balance between rewarding people and they get a big reward at one time instead of lots of little rewards that add up. And then you've got the edge cases. We can't balance too much. We can't punish everybody else because somebody went off and was crazy one time. So downsizing. I mean, if people believe that the rewards are too big, that's fine. But we still need to keep a look at it. We don't want to punish everybody. As for the route, I need to actually sit down with the map one of these days and see do some research and look at other websites to see if we can find some interesting things that we would show people on the expedition as they followed it on. So that's an interesting thing to do. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, on to discussion. I didn't actually listen to that earlier. That's the first time I've heard it. It's wonderful. I think I was sent it earlier today, but I've been busy. So I mean, I'm just back from Rome, so I've had a busy day, and I'm preparing my coursework for tomorrow. So I was trying to put together the show and doing some research and things for the show notes, and I didn't do all the homework I should have done. But yeah, that was nice. I like that. Can I hear that again?
Oh, come on, wait.
That is wonderful. I do like that.
Yeah,
So-
it sounds chatty.
It does sound chatty. It'd be nice if we had more chatty people to chat with, but anyway. So
What
actually,
topic do you have planned for the start? Otherwise, I'd start with a follow-up on the general news.
yeah, no, it's kind of like the discussion that I wanted to have today was some of the stuff from the general news. The exploits, they're the community kind of seems to split in two whenever there's a big exploit. There's a lot of people who, rightfully, in my opinion, say, yes, well, I'm glad that shut down because it's not. It kind of takes away from the game if you're able to make a lot of money too quickly, and it takes away a lot of the. For me, it's nothing to do with the fact that I had to work for 2 years to get my first anaconda, and some guy just got it after like a few hours of exploiting. I don't care about what other people are doing, but I just feel it takes away from the worth of the game.
I followed the exploit a bit closely when it happened, or the first day they found out about it, and it was curious. It looked like they wanted to shut it down pretty quickly, and they changed the market pricing for the fertilizer, so you couldn't sell it at a gain anymore. But I suppose it was some automatic process, must have reset the prices. So a few hours later, they were back to the exploit. That was very entertaining to watch the prices jump back and forth.
Is it
but
possible that the price jump was simply because of market? Like because lots of people were buying, so the price came down?
I would assume there's some kind of market simulation behind it. Yeah, that it wanted to adjust
there
the
is.
fertilizer prices because of some traffic or so, and that made it jump back to the exploit prices. And the fix was probably just tweaking the number manually, and yeah, overridden.
There is also the group of people who feel that Elite Dangerous is too much of a grind, and that having something like this is a way of making money means they know. Yeah.
Sure, Elite is a lot of a grind, especially a grind you have to fight through as a new player until you get to the part where you can really do whatever you want and are not farming for new ships or something. But this is not the way to fix this. This is
I don't know. For
this
me,
is no
personally,
justification for exploits, in my opinion.
I'm of the opinion that personally, whenever I've discovered a cheat code for a game or a way to get infinite lives or whatever, that's the game ruined for me. After a few days of playing it that way, I don't want to play it anymore. Or after some time, we'll come back to it and no longer use the cheats. So I've never really bothered for years now. I don't really pay attention to cheats and cheat codes. And if I use them, I feel like I've just devalued the game for me. I mean, like I love Crusader Kings 2. There are lots of cheats and exploits in that. They're not even hard to use the command console, and I just don't do it. Now I've did it once to give my character immortality, and then even after like 10 years, I felt wrong and I had to leave. But obviously, a lot of people don't feel that way. They don't feel the way that I do, and they just want to make money so they can then go off and do whatever else. But I mean, even then, I disagree with the idea of grind. I don't think I've ever ground in the game, ground, whatever the past simple is. I've never really ground in the game. For me, it's always I've been playing. For me, what people call grind, for me is like gameplay. I've been playing the game for 5 years. I don't feel I'm grinding through my honk jump scoop. For me, it's not a grind. Sometimes I get bored of it. That's true, but I'll go off same if I'm doing anything. Sometimes I get bored doing one thing, or I get bored if it become reading. I'll go off and do something else, come back and enjoy it again. So
You see, I've started playing Elite in 2015. Well, like, I like to call it the good old times, because back then you actually had to take a few hundred missions to get to your first few million credits because, well, the rewards were less than good.
Yeah, no, but
So
a lot of us old timers are still not rich. I mean, we've never
I
really.
actually had to take a few hundred trade runs per week to earn around 10 million credits. It was
Yeah.
not easy back then, especially not the engineers. I come from a time where when you collect a material, it was just 1 and not 3 multiplied. And I've
I,
come from a time where I engineered all my 16 ships, where only on material was one material. So I did it the hardcore way, and I can't understand why people complain about grinding in 2019 when it's basically just a few hour job to get an anaconda.
yeah, I mean, everybody plays in a different way, but I'm curious, like the people who do like that sort of thing and do that sort of thing. I mean, how much do they play after that?
I would not define the grinding purely with the time effect, but more of doing something repetitively that can bore you. And sure, that's gotten a lot better, and I don't think the game is much of a grind anymore in that regard. But I still see this pattern, even with all the patches we've seen since, that new players pick up the game, they see the big ships, they see the Anaconda and whatnot, and they grind their lives out and run mission after mission to get those big ships, and then they sit there with a ship that without any outfitting isn't really worth much, and they quit the game and never play it again. And that is a bit, yeah.
Well, I call that a typical case of not enough will.
No, it's kind of when you get your heart set on something, you have a goal, and that's what Elite Dangerous has always been had a problem with. For me, it's the game's strength, which is that you have to set your own goals. And I mean, I had my own hurdle there when I got elite rank in exploration, when I got to Sagittarius A, when I got to Explorer's Anchorage, on my way to Beagle's Point. And for me, that was actually a massive demotivation because my goal for a long time had been to get elite in exploration. Without using the passenger missions and those kind of things, which I don't know, in my mind I saw as cheating. I wanted to do it old school. So when I actually achieved that, which had been a long-term goal of mine for years, I was demotivated until I could really believe in a new goal, which at that point was get to Beagle Point. And then when I got to Beagle's Point, I had another demotivation because my big long-term goal had disappeared at Sagittarius A, which was not getting to Sagittarius A, but was getting that rank. So when I got to Beagle's Point, then I had to set a new goal. And that's kind of, I did stop for a while at Beagle's Point as I examined what it was that I wanted to do. So I think Elite Dangerous suffers a little bit from that, people setting their own goals. And I think if your goal is like what Missler just said, which would be if you want to get that big ship, then when that's your goal and you get the money or there's an exploit or whatever to get that big ship more quickly, then your goal has disappeared, and then you have to find a new motivation because the game doesn't set you any goals. You have to set your own. Welcome, Chancellor Otto. He's quiet.
Well,
Sorry, I have food in my mouth.
would you look at this? The first time the Chancellor appears in our Congress.
Actually,
Hello, my friend.
That's something we didn't do. We didn't do the kind of ceremonial branch of mind. we skipped it today, which is this is the part where we would have had the branch of mind. I actually forgot to do that today.
You're
But,
telling me I showed up and you didn't roll out the red carpet?
Yeah, because you're late.
We had fireworks set to go off at 11 o'clock, and you missed
By the
them.
way, everything you say will be recorded and uploaded, so behave.
Anyway, sorry
I've
to
listened
bring
podcasts.
Yeah, sorry to bring Otto up to speed. Right now we're just discussing the exploit that was shut down and the effect of exploits on the game. So that's kind of what we're discussing just now.
There's never been a really good exploit for getting the cutter, though. That's really where all exploits or all rank grinds should go to. So
because it's locked behind our rank grind.
Yep.
So. Right.
But to get
Yes.
back on the exploit, in my opinion, this turned out pretty harmless, because I'm of the opinion something like that, where you can just, without any effort, this is pretty much no effort, you can make that amount of credits. This is obvious that is an exploit and unintended by the game developers. So I'm of the opinion that you should expect some kind of punishment or reaction to that. And I think the way they did it right now with just removing all the money you made plus a little bit extra because they didn't account for the pilot payment, but that's another topic. But I think that's pretty harmless, actually. In other games, if you want to see a lead like an MMO, I would actually expect bans.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, when you know it's an exploit, I think there was a lot of people worried when void opals started happening. Is this real? Is this a real thing that we could really do? Is this an exploit? I don't know. And it was kind of treated by the player base for a little time, for a brief time after it was introduced, as we're not sure if we're allowed to make this much money. I did see that. But this was obvious. You did nothing. You made a lot of money. It was obviously a broken mechanic.
To be fair, though, it did feel good getting the skills required to, effectively spot that money rock going void opal hunting.
Yeah. No, but void opals. I think what people were concerned about was because the payout was so big, and people thought that it might not be what was intended. I mean, that's basically what all these exploits are: is making money through a mechanism, and the amount that you're making or whatever is not intended. That's not what they had in mind. Whereas in this case, it obviously was, and they came out and said, "It's okay, guys. Go ahead, go make some money mining."
Yep. People also expected that to just be temporary and the prices to drop as people mine more void opals, but nope. It's fixed. It's intended.
And then everyone rolled their eyes and went, "Wait, they said it's working as intended, and they're right."
Yeah, but it does raise a question, though. I mean, is void opal mining balanced in your opinion?
I don't have the comparison to the extreme that Techie stated because I didn't play back then, but I think it's all right. And it doesn't get much more in a wing because it's completely bugged in a wing. So
For me, it's just easy mode. The amount of money you can get with 1 day opal mining is as much as I tried to get in 3 months back then.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about balance comparing now with then. I'm talking about balance comparing now with now. I mean, could you make similar money doing
I think it's too
any other
much.
profession?
It is a nice break, though, from some of the other types of making money out there. And if I did have to choose what's more effective between void opal mining and finding your local triple or double payanite hotspot and bringing your cutter out there, it still does feel a little more, at least effort-wise, in the.
And I think that's the key difference. There's definitely a skill to core mining. There is gameplay that the developers put a lot of time into in the last big update. So it makes sense that the payout is a little bit more outsized. I kind of agree with Missler. I thought it was going to come down in price, at least by now, and it just hasn't. So maybe at this point it's still a little out of balance, but it's been FDev's MO for big updates when they release some new mechanic or some new item. It's going to be a little bit more outpriced or greater payout compared to the rest of the market.
So I think it's just a pretty fun thing to do, and the visuals are stunning. I like blowing up the rocks, and I don't mind if the money is in that instead of just running the same mission over or something.
I think that's that's the definition of really a good gameplay. I mean, we were talking earlier about how I don't think the game is a grind, and you didn't agree with me because there was some repetition. And you're definitely right. Like comparing like void opal mining to running missions, it's definitely not grind in that. I mean, you're going out there, you're looking for the specific things. You need to know what you're looking for, have the right equipment, and yeah, that is probably some of the best gameplay they've had so far. I will say it's rivaled a little bit with exploration. I don't know what the payout, how that works out, but I know the pay has increased, and I really enjoy the new exploration mechanic that they brought in in December last year for this new. As in sense, it replaced the old mechanic, and I thought it's good gameplay. The new mining, the voidable mining, is good gameplay, and that's the sort of thing that we hope that they continue developing things in this more deep way, rather than just bulletin boards and running missions and taking cargo from A to B, or shooting Pirate George. Yeah. So I think it's good gameplay.
This does mean you have to actually make it back from out there.
I do know that. I almost crashed. When was it? Wednesday or Thursday night? I underestimated the gravity on a planet I was heading to, because I'd been landing on moons for so long that when I landed on an actual planet, I was doing okay, and then I misjudged it, and I was coming in too fast, and I realized
That's a rookie mistake.
That's what I said. I said this is a rookie mistake, and it was about 30 seconds before I hit. I realized what was going on, and I was able to pull up and boost. And I still hit the ground, but I didn't smack into it, so I was able to save my ship. But yeah, so that.
Vice Headmaster, do you deserve your uniform?
Hey, I'm out here, man. Where are you?
You're ready for survival.
Wait. Did Techeron just say that?
Yeah.
The man who hasn't been to Beagle Point?
Hey, you don't have to make it public.
Hey.
I'm out doing the real stuff, dude. Anyway, so the other thing I wanted to discuss a little bit today was the open letter. Have you guys read it?
That's a lot of text.
I haven't yet, no.
The Reddit one that they
Yeah.
posted?
Yeah.
I've ran through it.
Because it's right. I'll go through. I won't read it all out, obviously, because that would take too long. But basically, it's an outline that proposes some of the issues. Outlines some of the issues and proposes changes to improve the relationship between Frontier and the Elite Dangerous community. And there's the primary things that they talk about are lack of communication across the board, direction of the game, future roadmap, bug fixes. They discuss things like some game-breaking bugs that go unresolved for years at a time. I honestly can't think of a single game-breaking bug that goes unresolved. There are bugs that have been in for years, but game-breaking, I don't know. Gross balance issues in multiple areas, particularly when looking at combat-focused players and everyone else. And no beta testing for the updates, which is kind of like it's the impetus behind this petition, I think, is the fact that the September update just broke everything, and we still have a lot of things broken. I'm lucky because none of it touches exploration gameplay at this point. So personally, I haven't seen it, but that doesn't mean to say that it's not there and it's affecting a lot of people. And I know that a lot of people, specifically on consoles, have been badly affected by it without any way to fix it easily. So, how do you feel about that? We've touched on some of these points in the past about the relationship specifically between Frontier Developments and the community. And the lack of communication. How do you feel about the petition? Do you think this is the right way to go about it? Do you think they've got some good points?
I feel the whole game-breaking bugs thing, kind of like what you said with exploration, can come down to the sort of gameplay that you derive from Elite. Like
that's a fair point.
Yeah, like I read the open petition from a link through the Anti-Xeno Initiative server. And for those guys, like, Jeff, you've been on my ship before trying to fight a,
That's right, actually, yeah, you're right.
Cyclops. Yeah, like there's the bug where the heart you're supposed to shoot doesn't show up properly to all the members of the same wing. And that can actually really be a detriment to your gameplay experience there.
And how long has that bug been? I mean, again, this you're right, because depending on your specific task, then bugs maybe won't affect you. I mean, like there was the bug that I encountered because Marco Gwent wouldn't unlock, and that was a very specific issue that wouldn't have been noticed until somebody tried to do it. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there are bugs which may have been going on for years that would break a specific area of play. So yeah, I take it back.
Same for the Void Opal thing I mentioned earlier. And if you want to do it in a wing, I would consider that almost unplayable.
Okay. So there are game-breaking bugs, like if you want to do a specific, and that's been going on since Void Opals came in.
It is a big game, though. It depends on how you like to play.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's you raised a good point though, which is that if you want to do specific tasks or specific activities in the game, then those have been impossible with, or at least made a lot more complicated because of a bug.
I think I remember a moment running through. The bear was there. Missler was there too, going after hearts of a. I don't remember if it was a basilisk or not at this point, but someone
That
had
was
the
the
proper
Medusa.
heart. Oh, the Medusa? Like someone
Yeah.
had the proper heart, and we were like, "Which one do we shoot? Can you like target it for me so we can try and hit the right glowy bit?" So yeah, I feel where the certain perspectives of the community are coming from is like pushing from different things out of this open letter.
Okay. So, so for you then, the petition has probably more strength than it originally had for me when I first read it, because from what I'm doing, I've not been affected drastically recently. I mean, there has been in the past some specific situations where I couldn't do something I wanted to do because of a bug. But it's all, for me personally, I've been very lucky. It's always been a temporary thing. I mean, it might mean I couldn't play the game for 2 or 3 days, which happened once. Actually, once I couldn't play for a week because of 2 different bugs.
Oh no!
That happened one after the other. But it's not been. I've not had an experience with a bug which inhibited my gameplay for a prolonged period of time. And it's it's good to know that there are. It's bad to know that there are situations like that, because they shouldn't be. But it's good to know that this specific grievance that was aired in the petition does actually hold up.
The one thing I'm unsure about, and I go back and forth on, is the primary solution that is proposed in this open letter is the permanent test server and beta testing, which
Yes.
it all sounds good, but if everybody remembers from, I think it was, may not have been the very last update in chapter 3, but it was the one where they actually released the core mining. They had the beta for that, they had the testing for that, and it still broke when they pushed it to production. So I don't think the test server and betas actually solves the problem. I think and I'm not a developer, so I can't speak too authoritatively on it, but it sounds like there's something with their merges that always goes wrong. And test servers isn't going to solve that if there's an issue with just the base code or just their actual method of production and merging branches.
The other question is participation. I don't know how many people actually played on the previous test servers when they tested the patches. I mean, compared to some other online games, Elite doesn't have a very huge community, and only a little percentage of those players can probably expect it to also test on the test server. And as we already mentioned, the game is very spread out. There are so many activities you can do, and you at least want a few people try out everything you can do in the game. So I don't know how much opportunity there actually is to get feedback and spot all these bugs.
I believe, if I remember correctly, the open beta for the end of Chapter 3 was actually fairly well utilized. I remember seeing numbers on that. It wasn't a huge percentage. It was like single digits of the player base, but it's sufficient. I want to say early on, though, like when the test server actually was a thing, that was invite only. That was only a couple people when basically Frontier would invite I think it was mostly content creators to actually go out and bug test for them. So that was a much smaller percentage, but the open beta thing seemed to have, fairly good participation. Problem was that even with the bugs that were reported in the beta, they either did not get fixed when it moved to production or new bugs emerged.
I still think that I do understand and I agree, but I do think that the beta does weed out a lot of the big killer things. But then obviously I think we touched on this before. I think we were speaking about it, but I can't remember if it was actually on the show. But it does hit some of the big points. Like when they do a beta test and there's a lot of people on, then yeah, they do manage to catch some of the bigger bugs. Obviously, there's always, when the code goes wild, there's always going to be different things that come in at that point. But I do think that the betas do serve a purpose, and it does help. Obviously, whenever it hits us, there's always going to be something that breaks, but they're trying to make it as little as possible. So I think,
and I'm not advocating against betas and test servers. I'm just saying I would not look at that as the be all end all to solve all these problems with the update. There is a deeper issue going on that I don't think any of us are actually aware of.
I think that's a good point. I've never actually considered that before.
I do remember it was a specific part of the open letters. They wanted to open up the betas to anyone who had at least a base level of the game, and like not Horizons and whatnot. Because if I remember correctly, wasn't it limited in the past to like only people who like were in the beta could participate?
Yeah, I mean originally like betas
with the lifetime pass.
Yeah, that's me. So yeah, it was limited to people who'd backed the game before it released, and it's still a bit of a sore point with some members of the community. Was like a lot of people bought some backers passes because they were specifically told that we would always have like first run at the code. Like whenever a new update was going to be released, we would get it first. I was already committed. I'd already thrown lots of money at the game before that because I was stupid and not yet married, and I didn't have a kid at that point. But so I had some free money. So I didn't care what the promise was, and I still don't. But a lot of people were upset because they were specifically sold an expensive pass which said that now and in the future you will have like first dibs on any update that we have, and you'll get a beta. So yeah, it was specifically limited in the past to people who had backed the game. There were different tiers. It wasn't just lifetime expansion pass people. There was lots of different tiers where that was included, where there was a beta test promised, which I still think is funny because beta testers used to be paid, and now we pay to be part of them.
I think they took a step in the right direction though when they announced they'd be reducing like the Galnet articles though. Because I think they had said before like the size of the team had been reduced, so if they can put more manpower towards the gameplay and stuff, I think that might help out in the long run.
Is that what happened? Because I thought that was to more support interstellar initiatives, which now that I'm mentioning it, when was the last one of those?
Yeah, there was a thread. There was a thread about that today, actually, that I was reading, which is people are saying, what happened to interstellar initiatives? No, I suspect that the team, because it's a different thing, obviously. I mean, if you're writing Galnet articles, in theory, that should be a writer that's doing that. It's not necessarily a coder who's writing your Galnet articles, and I would hope it isn't. Games do have talented writing teams, or they should do, especially if you've got a game where there is a story involved. I know Drew was involved in some things at some point in the past, but isn't now, as far as I'm aware. But
I think there was a little forum post on as clarification to that reduced Galnet thing, and they mentioned that they were moving the writing team to new content. I think they meant both Interstellar initiatives, but also that the upcoming content 2020 is requiring
Okay.
a lot of writing. And if we want to just for a second assume that the leak is true and we'll get some kind of FPS gameplay, then I imagine there's a lot of potential for story writing and missions there.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
going to miss my daily dose of Galnet news articles because I always love to end my day with reading one of those.
Do you know that I was actually offered an editorship position on Galnet? Not just me, but all of us who were on the DDF. Because one of the promises that was made to us when we joined the DDF, which was the team that we looked at the proposals and discussed
Real
the game
quick,
mechanics.
what's DDF?
DDF was the Design Decision Forum, which was at the highest tier backers, and we were given. I mean, that's where things like the frameshift drive and all that come from us arguing with Frontier that we didn't want to jump room to room. We wanted. So we discussed everything. I mean, like slavery, mission mechanics, narcotics. I mean, every game, how the market worked. We went through everything. But one of the things that we were promised, and I actually completely understand why this didn't happen. I'm still sorry it didn't happen. Was we were promised, and I quote, godlike powers when the game went live. And Frontier never found a good way to implement that. They never found a good way to implement giving me godlike powers. And David Braben, early in the game's first year, said, "Okay, we can't give you godlike powers, but we'll give you guys like control of Galnet. So you guys, you will read over and look at the reports submitted, and Galnet is controlled by the DDF." And we refused it because we were still miffed about not having our godlike powers. And personally, I didn't like the idea because for me, it's one of those things. That's a job, and somebody should be paid to do that, and you shouldn't be giving it to me as like a prize. And it should be somebody should be paid to actually write that content or go through those posts that are submitted. I mean, that's a job. That's not like a fun thing.
I mean, if you wanted godlike powers, I would have settled for the ability to move freely through permit-locked areas.
If my English was better, I would accept immediately.
I think in retrospect, maybe some of us, like maybe not all of us, maybe some of us should have got together and said, okay, we accept. Like there's 4 of us who accept, because I always think Galnet. Because I used to work with Galnet a lot, and it was very frustrating. Corwin's original story of being arrested was actually supposed to play out through Galnet, and in the end, we got something on the local news for Cubio and Akinar. Sorry, I just learned how to pronounce that today. By Akinar.
Hey.
But it was just an incredible, because we had to submit our stories. Then maybe the story would get approved, maybe not, or they'd ask you to rewrite it, and it was and even then, I mean, I know for a fact that at least a couple of my stories were rejected because the guy who was correcting them and publishing them didn't understand how an article should be written. I mean, I usually followed the typical pyramid structure, which is what's used in real news, which is you give the headline first, then you give a brief overview of the story in the first couple of lines, and then you go in depth into the story. And he obviously didn't understand that. I mean, he didn't understand the pyramid structure. He didn't understand how a real article would be written. Because I know some of the criticisms that I used to get from him were repetition. It's like, dude, that's how you actually write an article. That's not something I'm making up. That's the structure. And he didn't understand that. I had a few discussions with him. But it was a very frustrating thing to try and tell a story on Galnet. Because originally there was about 4 or 5 of us who were writing the Corwin story, and not just me. It wasn't just me and Kevin. It was me, Kevin, and some guys from different factions within the Empire, not just from Ashling, but people were writing different articles, and at least 3 other ones were. And one guy, Corey, had loads of articles published, but that one article for Corwin didn't get published, and it broke up the story. We were unable to tell the story through Galnet. It was very frustrating.
And that's why TPM was founded.
TPM had already been founded by that point, but that was a local thing, only known, and it's still today. It's still a lot of people know of it, or they're aware of articles in it, but they don't know that TPM was really a big thing for us for a while. Anyway, the other main thing here is, and it's something that we keep coming back to, is the lack of communication across the board, which includes direction of the game, future update, bug fixes, and more. I think that's the big thing that we're still. I mean, we're 7 years that we've been active as communities, even from before the game launched, and it's something that we keep coming back to time and time and time again, which is the community's relationship with Frontier and Frontier's close mouthness. I mean, they're very quiet. They don't say something unless they have something to say, and it's very frustrating for a lot of people.
Do you think now that we have not only the leak from a couple of months back, but also the most recent thing with the buildings mistake on the website, do you think that now would be a good time for Frontier to just communicate and give more information on the update for next year?
That's a good point as well, actually, because we do have these leaks. I mean, that was something that I had originally considered for the general news, but it's actually been it's been and gone in the week since we discussed it, which was the leak for base building, which came out this week, which was a problem in the. If you looked at the source code for the page, it showed up. It doesn't now, and I've not had time to actually confirm that story. But yeah, I mean, the big leak that came out, it does seem to confirm that we're going in a specific direction. But yeah, it would, because we already have an idea. It'd be nice if Frontier came in and said, "Okay, this is what's happening, this is where we're going." Just to get, obviously, with an update that's coming in a year, that maybe they want to they don't want to start talking about it just yet. So I do understand that. I mean, we're not Star Citizen. We've had, people have been hyped for 6-7 years now. So I don't know, because it's so far away, I can understand why they still don't want to talk about it. I mean, we're getting to the point where it's actually kind of similar when they had their big show. When they had the big show and they started talking about things that were coming in beyond. And a lot of that stuff was a year away. In fact, some of it we still haven't got to, like with the carriers and things. So, yeah, I could see why they still aren't ready to talk. But maybe you're right. Maybe they should start talking to us. We've got a year, and we have to fill that with something. So maybe after December, maybe they don't want to take away from the December update, because that's coming reasonably soon. And they want to hype that, and they want that update and the carriers to have their big arrival. So maybe we'll start seeing new information from them in January or February.
Not to rag on other games, but if we're using No Man's Sky as an example, you want people to be hyped for what you do have and not what they think you have. And No Man's Sky did a good job rebounding from that, but
yeah, No Man's Sky has I've never played it. There's just something about the style that just doesn't appeal to me. But I won't criticize it. And it's, from what I can tell, I have followed it. But yeah, they really buckled down and tried to deliver. I don't think they deliberately screwed people over, and I think a lot of people have come to understand that. They didn't set out to screw you when the hype didn't match the game on release. But that's a different thing. Okay, so this has been another episode of the Prismatic Congress. We've had some nice discussions about various points. I mean, how do you feel about exploits? Or are you one of those people who are sorry that they're shut down? Are you going to sign the petition? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you very much for listening. I've been your host, Jeff Ryan.
Excuse me, technical difficulties.
We can edit.
It's.
Can I just go?
No. Oh,
You got
but I
one job,
cannot.
man. You got one job.
Oh, what's going on here? Please, don't.
We should definitely add bloopers.
Ouch. Okay. No. Excuse me, that will never happen again. Okay, silence.
Okay, so
Do you want to play the new discussion tune?
Not yet. We're not at the new discussion yet.
Oh, right, follow up.
There's a lot more bloopers in this episode, isn't there?
I'm so sorry.
Not yet. Because they're still right. We'll get to that in a minute.
I'm
Right,
so
so-
sorry.
Nope, not yet, Techie. We'll do that in a minute. So just now is the analysis, and then we're moving on to discussion. That's how we've always done it. I was thinking, is Techie going to come in with the end music there?
Okay, yeah, I have to check what the fuck happened wrong.